Take a quick look around the room you're sitting in right now. I'm willing to bet that somewhere, probably tucked in a corner or sitting on a shelf, there's a little plastic box with a few blinking lights. Your Wi-Fi router. For years, we've implicitly trusted this totally mundane piece of hardware, right? We just assume its only job is to pipe the internet to our phones, our laptops, and our TVs. But what if I told you that this completely ordinary, innocent-looking device has quietly been weaponized? Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are stepping right into the middle of a literal tech thriller that is unfolding inside our own homes. We're going to investigate a massive, corporate-driven surveillance scandal that is happening right under our noses, completely hidden in plain sight.
Look, I know it sounds like straight-up science fiction, but I really want you to imagine an invisible matrix filling your home. Just picture a continuous, invisible web of radio waves flooding your living room, your bedroom, your hallways. Now, what if that invisible matrix was quietly watching, tracking, and mapping every single physical move you make? And what if it was doing all of this without using a single physical camera lens? You see, you simply don't need a lens to be watched anymore. The source material we're digging into today reveals a truly terrifying reality. The hardware you already own, stuff you bought yourself, has been repurposed to turn your private sanctuary into a fishbowl.
So let's dive into Section 1, how your Wi-Fi sees, creating this invisible matrix. You might be wondering, how exactly does a router become a camera? Well, the secret lies in a technology known as Wi-Fi sensing. More specifically, something called channel state information, or CSI. Through this tech, ordinary wireless routers are effectively being turned into advanced radar units. They aren't just passively transmitting data anymore. They are actively bouncing signals off the physical environment to literally see through walls and track human presence. Think of your Wi-Fi router constantly filling the room with radio waves. When you walk into that room, your physical body disrupts that signal. You actually cause distortions in those waves. CSI is the measurement of those exact distortions. These unencrypted radio waves are constantly bouncing off your physical form, practically sketching an invisible silhouette of you in the dark. Your router notices every single time you disrupt its signal, and it turns that disruption into highly actionable data. Now, the way it translates a simple radio wave into a terrifyingly accurate image happens in 3 steps. Step 1, the router emits the waves. Step 2, your body disrupts them. But step 3, that's where the modern tech thriller really kicks into high gear. Artificial intelligence algorithms are now fully capable of taking those wave distortion patterns and translating them into a real-time, highly detailed skeletal map. I want you to literally picture a glowing wireframe 3D matrix showing wireless radio waves bouncing off a human silhouette inside a dark room. The AI uses that to perfectly recreate your posture, your position, and your movements. And here's the crazy part. It maps you perfectly even if you aren't carrying a phone, a smartwatch, or any electronic device at all. Your physical body is literally the only input it needs. And if a 3D skeletal map wasn't invasive enough, consider the sheer unbelievable granularity of this invisible technology. These algorithms have gotten so incredibly refined that they don't just track where you are in a room, they can actually detect physiological micro-movements. The source material confirms this tech can detect the subtle rise and fall of your chest as you breathe. It can pick up the microscopic shifts of your heart rate, and it can do all of this through solid physical walls. You could literally be sleeping alone in a locked pitch-black room, and the Wi-Fi router out in the hallway is perfectly logging your resting heart rate and respiratory patterns. Which brings us to Section 2, the great privacy deception, hidden right in plain sight. Naturally, you have to ask, if this technology is so incredibly powerful, why on earth haven't we heard about it? Well, there is a vast canyon between what we're being told and what is actually happening behind the scenes. Tech companies are aggressively marketing these devices as privacy-preserving, but their entire argument is simply based on the fact that the devices lack a physical glass camera lens. But the reality is that the system maps your breathing, your heart rate, and your exact skeletal posture. They essentially traded the glass lens for a glowing wireframe 3D matrix and just quietly chose not to mention it to us. The true scandal here isn't just the invention of this radar, it's how systematically it has been hidden from the public, all under the comforting guise of safety. I really want to pause here and read a quote directly from the source material because I think it hits the absolute core of the betrayal we're talking about. It states that this technology, quote, shatters the final boundaries of human intimacy, end quote. Take a second to really think about what that means. By quietly rolling out a system that peers straight through walls, tech companies have completely invaded the very last safe spaces we have,
our bedrooms, our bathrooms. These are places where the expectation of absolute, uncompromised privacy isn't just a luxury, it's a fundamental human right. And that boundary, it's been silently erased by the router sitting right in your hallway.
Let's move to Section 3, a blueprint for abuse, and the escalating threats this poses. So what happens when this deeply personal granular data is harvested? The real-world risks are vast, and they are escalating fast. Let's start at the micro level. Inside households, this technology hands over a horrifying blueprint for domestic abuse. A controlling parent or partner with admin access to the network can micromanage and monitor their family's exact physical movements without them ever knowing. Moving up the chain, commercial entities are absolutely salivating over this data, harvesting it to build unbelievably invasive behavioral profiles for targeted marketing. And what about your job? Corporate employers can quietly deploy this exact same spatial intelligence to silently audit the physical movements of their employees throughout the workday. And as we reach the very top of this escalating list, we hit the most terrifying application of them all: massive national security breaches. This takes us into Section 4, the national security threat, focusing on passive interception. This is where the story shifts from a privacy violation to a catastrophic global danger. Because this invisible matrix mapping our homes, it's actively leaking. The signal wave feeds, those precise measurements of channel state information that map your breathing and your skeletal structure, they are sent entirely unencrypted over the air. Let that sink in for a moment. Highly detailed wireframe mappings of human beings moving around inside buildings are being broadcast straight into the ether without a single drop of cryptographic protection. Literally anyone with the right receiver who happens to be within range of your Wi-Fi network can just pull that data right out of the air and reconstruct the 3D matrix of exactly what is happening inside your home.
And hostile actors can absolutely exploit this fatal flaw. We're talking about terrorist groups or hostile nation-states passively intercepting these leaking Wi-Fi waves. Because the data is unencrypted, they can track high-value targets straight through the thick walls of secure facilities. They can passively map out the internal layouts and guard movements of critical infrastructure just by listening to the Wi-Fi. Even more alarming, they can weaponize foreign-manufactured microchips, like those incredibly cheap, ubiquitous ESP32 chips found in millions of everyday smart home devices, to act as covert radar nodes for mass population tracking. We've essentially wired our own environments for total surveillance and handed a master key to anyone who decides to listen.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, the global surveillance grid, the point of no return. Now, you might be sitting there hoping, okay, surely this is just a temporary glitch, right? An oversight that developers are going to patch in the next update. Well, it isn't. IEEE 802.11bf. Now, that's not just some random technical jargon. That alphanumeric code represents the brand new global standard for wireless communication. While governments in the tech industry remain dead silent about all these privacy and security risks we've just covered, they are actively, deliberately codifying Wi-Fi sensing directly into our global hardware infrastructure. This standard ensures that every single new router, every single new smart device will be universally capable of operating as a spatial radar out of the box. They are effectively turning the world's most common communication network into an invisible, all-seeing mass surveillance grid.
Which leaves us with this final, lingering thought. I want you to look at that blinking plastic box in the corner of your room one more time. Knowing what you know now about the glowing wireframe 3D matrix it's projecting into your dark rooms, knowing that it's mapping your heartbeat, your breathing, and your physical movements, and broadcasting it entirely unencrypted, how can you ever expect privacy again when the internet itself is watching you? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Until next time, stay vigilant and stay curious.